Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, a forum for business owners and senior executives to share the experiences about the elements that drive their success. Your host is Robert Brill, CEO of Brill Media.co, an Inc. 500 company delivering the power of hyperlocal advertising. Robert writes for Forbes, Inc. and ad trade publications. Our goal is to bring you the stories about successes and failures of people who are making big things happen in marketing, entrepreneurship, and management.
Welcome to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. Today we have a very special conversation with Miha Matlievski. He's a business advisor who has helped over 3,500 people succeed with his framework for freedom. He's an entrepreneur, business owner, and mentor, has exited at least one company in the energy sector. And our conversation was really interesting. We actually met through Reddit, and he has a LinkedIn live show and a podcast. He's also known as the Fail Coach, and he helps business owners figure out how to succeed by learning from the successes and failures of others. And Miha and I had a really great conversation with the idea that I'm going to join him on a future LinkedIn Live, which will be happening. But the conversation turned into an hour-long conversation, and I learned some interesting things about scaling businesses. So if you want to reach out to him, it's Miha at matlievski.net, MIHA at MATLIEVSKI.net. I hope you enjoy this episode. And what do you do exactly? Like, what is? I understand the content. Like, what's your business?
Well, I'll try to give you everything in a very super nutshell. So I've started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 18. I flanked out of high school.
Okay.
And by the time before I was 30, I had 4 successful businesses doing 7 and 8 figures.
Okay.
And my personal net worth was around 15 million US.
Okay.
And then in 2009, because I'm in Europe, so you guys had the crisis in 2008, and in Europe it came in 2009 because of series of past mistakes. I lost everything overnight, literally from Monday to Tuesday. And I ended up being 5 million in debt, personal debt, because I had everything as a collateral. And so I ended up 5 million in personal debt, no option to do personal bankruptcy, and went through depression, anxiety, you name it, the darkness, the suicide attempt, and so on. And finally had an aha moment in 2010, realized, what I need to do. And then I spent next 3 years working on my personal development, business development. In 2014, I created a startup in energy efficiency. So we were helping huge corporations save on how much electricity and gas they use. I was able to use all the lessons from the past, and I scaled that startup from $0 to $50 million a month in 9.5 months, to 700 million then next year. And then I had my exit. It wasn't, like a public exit. It was more like a technology takeover by a competitor, a Fortune 100 company, and paid all my debts, which accumulated to almost 7 million by that time with all the interest and everything. Went on a huge vacation, came back, and I was like, what do I do now? I have the freedom of time. I have the freedom of money. I can choose what to do. My first thought was, maybe I can try all the burgers and craft beer in the world.
Yes.
But then that didn't seem sustainable.
I love that.
And what I do now is, on one hand, I have an online program where I really help people who are just starting the entrepreneurial journey. And my podcast is more connected with that audience. And then on the other hand, because I still love the insane scalability and stuff like that, I usually take like 2 clients a year and I have this like 1 year program. It's very high ticket, but like for example, one company from Holland, we started working in January. They were averaging 3 to 4 million euros, which is roughly 4 to 5 million US per year in the last 3 years. And now this year we will be around 17.
Wow.
So it's all about, like going back to the basics, making sure that all the proper foundation is there. The foundation in entrepreneurs. We had a little bit also of, I call it marriage counseling, because it's two owners and they had,
Yeah.
a bit of different of energy between them. So we did a little bit of that. We worked very hard on laying down all the right foundations, and the processes and KPIs and benchmarkings and all of that, and then preparing the whole thing to be ready to be scaled really on a holistical level, so that we took care that all the processes in the company were ready for scaling. And then, we started with that. And I'm ending the two companies that I was working with this year at the end of December. And so, next year, 2 or 3. I don't like to work with more than 2 at once, because the way I do coaching is completely different. So it's not, we have one call a week. I'm really hands-on, and they get like all inclusive. And I love that. I love challenges. I love so I couldn't just focus on one area. But on the other hand, I'm super passionate about helping new entrepreneurs. I don't know, it's just they deal with so many inner demons, and I don't know. I just love, when you see that you've taken somebody from clueless to 20, 30, 40K a month, and now they can afford what they wanted. They can spend more time with the family. And I'm especially good when it comes to exiting for the entrepreneur. Doesn't necessarily need to mean you sell your company, but exiting in a way where you can take yourself from the opera. Like the way I describe it, you have the freedom of time, the freedom of money. But then those two freedoms, what will give you is there are 3 freedoms in my opinion. So the first one and the easiest one is freedom of money. I mean, when you don't have it, it seems like the hardest one, but later on in the entrepreneurial journey, you see that it's the easiest. Now, the second one is much harder. It's the freedom of time, where you have to learn how to just let go, trust that you've built, the right foundation, and to let go certain things. And by doing that, you come to the freedom of choice, where, things become, you don't have to do them, you choose to do them. And so it's I mean, I know it's just one word, but it's a huge mental difference where, you can say, oh, now I want to go, sailing for next 6 months. And that everything will be okay and the company will keep growing and scaling. Those are my two different passions.
That's interesting. I don't have that.
Okay. I mean, it depends if you even want that, like that's depends at which stage you are, what are your ambitions, and so on, like
we have really great infrastructure. So now it's up to me to like meet new people and get more business. We don't, all of our business has really been on my relationship. So I need to scale beyond my relationships.
I mean, I know a lot of companies have, like relationship marketing or referral, which is amazing. I mean, what's better than, somebody referring you, but it's not scalable because you are not in the driver's seat. It's not, you start the traffic and it goes through a proven funnel system, journey, whatever you want to call it. I hate the word funnel because it's just thrown so much around. But you need to have a system. And even for the sales, often, entrepreneurs take on the role of the salesperson. And usually they say, oh, I'm the best. And I mean, of course you are the best in sales in your company because, it's your heart and soul and all of that. But that just means that your sales process sucks. And I've learned a lot from him. And when I help companies, I try to get them as close as possible to running like a McDonald's restaurant. It's not always, I mean, you can't always do that. I mean, if you're working with an IT company, you can't find, developers on the streets. So there are, differences, but trying to get them as close to that with processes and validating them. And then it's very important to measure things, to have KPIs. Obviously you know all about KPIs being in marketing, but for me even more important thing is benchmarking. What do we benchmark against? Because only benchmarking gives you the full story. And so things like that, and just the whole company culture, how to structure the HR processes, for example. How in marketing you have ideal client avatar. With HR process, so first we do the processes and KPIs and benchmarking. That's kind of like the first layer. And then once we have that and we see how the flow goes in the company, I usually help them to get company structure based on that flow. So still keeping it as lean as possible and so on, and based on the flow. Once we have the structure, so now we can start doing what I call ideal employee, because, an accountant you would look for different things in an accountant than maybe in a salesperson, and so we do this ideal employee for each role. And there you have skills, you have then internal knowledge base, how you get them from junior to mid-year, from mid-year to senior, and so on, and at which point you want to take them in, and it's like a whole revamping of the system. But once you do that, and then what? Then you're gonna punch the hours and stuff like that. I mean, who wants that?
Right.
So I was able to walk away from the exit, but for example, my business partner, my co-founder, wasn't. He had to sign for 5 years, but it was all because of his ego. Because he was always me. I did that. I created that. Every information needs to go through me. And I was constantly telling him, like, dude, like, you're shoveling your own grave, because we started the company with exit in mind. We weren't going for cash flow. We were just pumping money from investors in, and we were going for just insane scalability. And then the exit, the buyer will cover all of that opportunity. So we weren't going for monthly cash flow or things like that. So he knew from day one that we want to sell as fast as possible. But he was doing everything to be seen, as, I'm so important and so on. And a very important thing is to let go of the ego, even when, yes, sometimes it didn't feel really good, not to be mentioned or something like that, and praised. But at the other hand, I knew, well, okay, but when I sell it, I can walk away, and I was able to walk away on day one, and I'm now really enjoying that freedom of choice, and he's not. And now he calls me every 2 or 3 weeks and just bitches, like, oh, because the company that bought us is a huge energy efficiency company from Germany. So he had to relocate, and he has German bosses, because that's a huge, I mean, that's a Fortune 100 company. So he's not
It's a very different type of culture.
Yeah. And I mean, he's not, like a C-level of the main corporation. He's down there in middle management, so because that's just one part of their business, what we were doing. And so, yeah, I mean, his ego got in the way, and now he's paying for it. So just, when you will consider
That's
really
funny.
exiting, start making an exit strategy based on very solid foundation, where you can really take but you have to do that in a transitional way. You can't just do it overnight, and then things can fall apart. So the new CEO, you need to mentor them, coach them through the process, and so on. So it's very important how you do that process. And I always suggest everybody to have when you have the strategy, you need about 1 year to really implement it, validate it, test it, so that that you can feel secure in really letting the reins. And that should be done before. So all of that needs to be completed before you even start conversations, because the moment you start conversations, the document room, and they come in and they start doing the due diligence and all of that. And by that time, you must be the least important person in the company. Otherwise, you're screwed and you're locked in. And I mean, what's your value proposition? So like, let's say if I'm an agency or a consultant, like, what's your proposition to me?
I'll tell you, it's because I need, in order for that to be for that to be interesting to you, I got to just give you like 30 seconds of framework. Sure. The framework is the largest ad agencies in the world. They have these tools and capabilities that we're deploying. It's called programmatic advertising, data and automation. I did it for large brands like Bacardi, Toshiba, PetSmart. What are these tools and capabilities that are generally available to the largest brands you're familiar with, we're making available to small and mid-sized brands. So literally any company, like if you said, I want to start an advertising agency, all you have to do is partner with us and you'll make money on top of us. And you get to sell to your clients.
So you're kind of like white label thing. Yeah. So if I don't want to do that part and I want to offer that in my agency as part of my agency, okay, which agencies are usually interested in adding your portfolio of products into their mix?
Digital out of home, television, radio, creative, and consultants who kind of like understand this, and have relationships and want to do strategy work.
Okay.
And they do the strategy, we do the activation.
Just one quick story I want to share with you. I mean, I've heard this story when I was once in Stanford, and I went to hear a lecture, and the lady was telling the story of firemen. I don't know if you're familiar with it. So firemen, during most of the day they spent in the firehouse, they train, they practice, and then when there's fire, they go to the fire ground. And the more time they spend in the firehouse, better, safer, quicker, everything, they are on the fire ground. And then she turned around and looked at all of us and said, well, how do you spend most of your day? Are you on the fire ground constantly chasing fires, or do you spend enough time in the firehouse? And for you as the CEO, as the owner, for you, the most important part is the firehouse time, because on the fire ground, you're just solving current situations. But, eliminating them so that they don't come back, and the growth and all of that, and testing and trying and innovation, all of that happens in the firehouse time. So, try to, I don't know how much time you spend on your business now, but, whatever it is, try to limit it. I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they go into a day with the abundance of time they can spend on business, I have my whole day to spend for business. And then you're super unproductive and you get caught in, Facebook and this and that, because, hey, you have the whole day. So I'm always challenging CEOs to, limit and say, okay, I just have 4 hours. Now I have to start thinking with the ROI, what are the activities that I can pull in 4 hours that will produce the biggest ROI, and spend the rest of the time in the firehouse.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I'm doing is creating content.
Okay.
Day to day. And I'm answering questions on Reddit and Quora, partially as a market research thing to understand what people are, what's happening, what people want from us, how to talk about it, and to understand the types of questions. I probably could spend more of my time devising a holistic strategy to reach agencies and consultants. And I'll tell you, when I started my business, I had a really nice win early on. I spent probably 15 months on Twitter, and I paid someone to do some following and unfollowing stuff for me around programmatic and digital advertising. I thought it wasn't working until one day I got a call, and this person's been a client for 3 years now and spent a lot of money with us.
Okay.
It takes a little bit of time.
I mean, anything in life, consistency. And I mean, when I come into companies to coach them, most of the time we are trimming the fat. We are not adding. So we are constantly trying to find the 20 that brings in the 80 and then double the 20.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to like. I'm not in a less organized way. That's what I'm trying to do.